Hello, everyone. We continue to see more and more so who is fighting the war, who is helping fight the war, and who is basically being completely useless. The first bit there on the list I talked about earlier. Despite Ukraine's desperate pleas for speedy delivery of equipment, including the F-16s, that is not happening. Likely not going to get the F-16s until this time next year. And as I mentioned before, I just hope somebody's left alive by then. There's been a large power outage in Dnipropetrovsk, that's Zaporizhia's close neighbor, because once again, Russian missiles struck civilian infrastructure. And unfortunately, we are continuing to see the destruction of grain warehouses. Although the container ship that Ukraine managed to get out had finally reached Romania. So hopefully at least that particular shipment is safe. Russia is demanding high fines from Google for failing to delete banned content about special military operations in Ukraine. Translation: Google posted what was actually going on as opposed to what Russia was saying was going on, and Russia is now pissed about this. Google, I suggest you don't pay. Don't pay them. What are they going to do? Fight you in court? They're going to have to come out to get you. Don't pay this thing. Ukraine is encouraging EU to sit down and talk about what they're going to do about their oil and gas supply if they are to phase out Russian oil and gas, if they are to end their dependency on Russian anything. This conversation needs to happen now. Actually, it should have happened 9 years ago when Russia invaded Crimea. But, since it didn't, now is good. We know what these people are capable of, and we know that as long as they're supplying any type of important resource to any kind of country anywhere in the world, they're going to use it as leverage for blackmail. So this is a good article on BBC talking about how Ukraine's college students were affected by all this. Now remember, as the article states, a lot of these kids joined the university during COVID. And then the war started. So for some of them, they have not done anything in the classroom. All of their college education up until this point has been virtually. So they're coming back to the classroom. However, of course, there are concerns about safety, since Russia has no qualms about bombing schools and universities. Finally, a ticker item that you might not see. UN, in its desperate attempt to remain relevant and pretend to be useful, had expressed concern about the closure of Russian language schools in the Baltic state of Estonia. They're saying that that is unfair to the Russian language population living there. First of all, I would like to remind the UN that the international laws regarding the protection for certain language groups has to do with dying languages. Russian language is not dying. Second of all, there are plenty of non-Russian nationals living in Russia. For example, there are over 2 million Ukrainians, half of which had changed their nationality on their paperwork to Russian for fear of persecution. I have not seen any concern about the lack of Ukrainian schools in Russia. So why is UN concerned about Russian schools in Estonia? And the last point, I suggest the UN leaders take up a history book and look at what Russia did when it invaded Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Finland, Ukraine. The first thing they did was close any establishments that were run in the language of that country. So they closed Polish, Ukrainian, Latvian, Estonian schools. They closed theaters. They closed newspapers. Business owners were forbidden to post signs and rosters like restaurant menus in their native language. Children were forbidden to speak their native language at school. And adults were forbidden to speak their language in the street, anywhere in public, or at work. And that was punishable potentially with fines, prison time, and loss of your employment. So all of that considered, UN, don't you have something more important to worry about? Like, oh, I don't know, a terrorist state sitting on your Security Council.